This is Carlos Pimentel with another thought of the day. Genesis 18 is one of my favorite chapters in all the Bible. It deals with Sarah and Abraham, and they're in a town called Mamre. And it says that Abraham pitched his tent under the terebinth tree there, like a Bedouin does. And he's sitting at the door of his tent, looking out at the heat of the day, and he looks around and he sees three guys. He recognizes one of them as the Lord. Yeah, the Lord, the pre-incarnate Christ in the Old Testament. It says that he runs to them and he bows down and worships. And then Abraham begs them to stay. He says, hey, let me draw some water that I can wash your feet. And then I'll prepare a meal. And so they agree. And so he has Sarah prepare 3 cakes. He goes out to the flock, gets a little young goat and prepares a meal. And they have a feast. And they're eating there by the tree. And the Lord turns to Abraham and says, hey, where's Sarah, your wife? And he said, hey, she's in the tent. And he said, all right, according to the time of life, in 9 months, I'm going to come back and Sarah's going to have a son. Now, Sarah is by the door of the tent listening to the conversation they're having as they're eating, because they didn't have a lot of guests, so it's an exciting thing to have a guest. So she's listening to the conversation, and she hears the Lord say to Abraham, hey, according to the time of life, in 9 months, Sarah's going to have a son. And it says that she laughed within herself, and she said, how can we who are so old, they were in their 90s, have a son? And so the Lord turns to Abraham and says, why did Sarah laugh when I said in 9 months she's going to have a son? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time, according to the time of life, I'm going to come back and she's going to have a baby boy. And then Sarah heard the Lord say that to Abraham, and she yells out, I didn't laugh. And the Lord said, oh, but you did laugh. I love that story. And I want to bring out a couple things out of that story. Number one, the Lord says to Abraham, is there anything too hard for the Lord? And the reason I want to bring that out is because we're living in difficult times. There's a lot of people that have lost their jobs. They're in financial difficulties. Some marriages are on the rocks because of the finances. And so there is, in some folks, a depression, disillusionment. There's hopelessness. And I want to encourage you and say, is there anything too hard for the Lord? You see, the Lord told Abraham, at the appointed time, I'm going to return. And I believe the same for us. You see, everything that goes on in our life is Father filtered. And what I mean by that is, the Lord knew we were going through what we're going through. He knew we were going to have difficult times. He knew we were going to have heartaches and heartbreaks. Everything is Father filtered, and so He knows what you're going through. But He says, at the appointed time, I'm going to show up. Why at the appointed time? I think oftentimes God is waiting for us to learn a certain lesson, but I also think that God is waiting for us to get our eyes off the horizontal plane to the vertical plane. You see, when we get in a bind or we're in difficult trouble or in a difficult situation, oftentimes we look at who can help us or what can help us rather than I know that He can help us. And so oftentimes the Lord is waiting for us to get our eyes off the horizontal and look at the vertical. He is my help in time of need. And so I want to say to you today, is there anything too hard for the Lord? You see, the Bible in Hebrews, it says that without faith, it's impossible to please God. And so we want to please the Lord, but the Lord says, hey, what pleases me is your faith in me, your belief in me, that I will do what I said I would do. I'll take care of you. And so when we take our eyes off the horizontal, look at Him in the vertical and say, I believe you. I trust you. I put my faith in you. I believe that's when the Lord starts to move. Because without faith, it's impossible to please God. And so I want you to take heart and say, hey, listen, there's nothing too difficult for the Lord. He's going to come through. Trust in the Lord. Put your faith in the Lord. He won't let you down. The second thing I want to bring up is the Lord is so merciful when we do something wrong. You see, Sarah lied to the Lord. She said, oh, I didn't laugh. And the Lord said, oh, but you did laugh. And the reason I bring that up is so many people portray God as this stoic entity that is waiting to crush us when we do something wrong. But he's so merciful and so gentle towards us, even in our weakness, even in our failure, that he tells Sarah, oh, you did laugh, but in 9 months you're still going to have a son. I'm still going to bless you. So my encouragement to you is, don't let your heart be troubled. There's nothing too hard for the Lord. He knows where you're at. He's ready to intervene. Put your full faith in him, and you'll see him come through, and you'll be able to give him all the glory. So there's nothing too hard for the Lord. And this is Carlos Pimentel with another thought of the day. God bless you guys.